Okay, in the last class we have already discussed about operations on process. Sorry. There is a problem. So let me check 1 second. In the last class we have discussed about operations on process. Okay, under the operations of process, the first topic is process creation and the next topic is process termination. So let me rewind the previous class for 2 minutes. After that, we'll go for the today's class. So under the process creation, we need to discuss about what is a system call is used to create a process. What is a system call used to create a process? That is a fork system call. So whenever a process uses the fork system call, automatically it will create the child process. Okay? The fork system call will return two values, 0 and a child PID. Okay, 0 will be returned to the child process and child PID will be returned to the parent process. Okay, that is about the fork system call. If any process want to create a child process, the process has to use the fork process. The process who is using the fork system call is called as a parent process, and whenever a parent process uses the fork system call, the created process will be called as child process. Upon successful upon successful execution, the fork system call will return two values, 0 to the child process and child PID to the parent process. Okay. Whenever the children created to the parent process, whatever the resources available for the parent process will be shareable to the children process. Okay. All the resources are shareable to the child process. And the next one, address space of the parent is also shareable to the child process. Whatever the address space, what address space consists of? Maybe code area, that means we can call it as a text section. And the next one, data area, where the global variables are available, and then stack, that means parameters and return address are available in the stack. All these details are as it easily copied from parent to child, from parent to child. Okay, so that means the code area is also copied from parent to child. Okay, in some situations, the child may execute the parent code, or the child can execute its own code by using exec system call. That means child can execute the parent code or child can able to execute its own code. It is a choice of a child. Okay, depending upon the situation, either we need to run the parent code with a child or a child can run its own code. Okay. And next point about execution is whenever a child process created, the parent process and the child process can execute parallelly. And they can start execution from the same point, right? Parallelly. Or else parent has to wait until child completes its execution. That means in order to complete or in order to terminate the process, we need to use exit system call. Okay. Parent has to wait until the child process completes its execution. So all these are the point under the process creation. Okay. What is the next one? Next one is a process termination. So what is the system call used to terminate the process? The system call used to terminate the process is exit system call. Okay. What are the reasons? What are the reasons for process termination? Okay. There are mainly three reasons for the process termination. What are those? The first one is child process consumes. Child process consumes too many system resources. Too many system resources. Right? That is the first reason. And what is the second reason? child process no longer required. Child process no longer required. So this is the second reason. What is the third reason? Parent terminates. Parent terminated. That means if a parent process is terminated, then the child will be automatically terminated. Otherwise, the children will become a orphan process. Okay. Parent terminate first before the children. If parent terminated first before its children, then the children will become orphan process. Okay. So coming to orphan process and Jombe process, these two topics are very important with respect to Unix also. Okay. You need to talk about orphan process and you need to talk about Jombe process when we discuss the process management. Okay. What is orphan process? Parent dies. Parent dies before children. Then the children will become orphan process. Children will become orphan process. Okay. Who will take care of orphan process? Init process will take care of orphan process. What is unit process? Unit process is a parent process of all the processes. Unit process is a parent process of all processes available in a system. So that is the reason why. What is the process ID of init process? The PID of init process is 1. Okay. The parent dies before a children, then the children will become the orphan process. So orphan process has no parent, right? So someone has to take care. So which process will take care of orphan process? The init process will take care of the orphan process. Okay. So what is init process? Init process is a parent of all the processes available in the system. What is the process ID of init process? The process ID of init process is 1. Okay. That is about orphan process. Then what will be, when will be the process will become Jombe? When will be the child process will become the Jombe? So as I told earlier, for example, if you use a fork system call, that means one process uses fork system call, automatically child will be created. So whenever the child process create, automatically child will execute the code by using exec system call. Once it executes the code, work done, automatically it will use exit system call. Exit is for terminate the process. Terminate the process. So whenever child terminates, automatically, very important point, please understand this point. Whenever the child terminates, automatically the child has to return the code. The child has to return the status code. That means status code, exit code will be returned to the parent process from the child process till that time. That means until the completion of child process, the parent process will be in the wait state. The parent process will be in the wait state. Okay. So whenever the child process created using a fork system call, the child process will execute the code by using exec system call. After executing the code, it would like to terminate. For example, whenever it terminates, automatically the status code will be returned to the parent process. The parent has to accept the return code. The parent may accept or may not accept. If parent not accept, if parent not accept the parent is not accepting the parent is not accepting the return code. You may remember this one, return status code, otherwise return code of child process. Return code of child process. Then what happened? So automatically the child will become Jombe process. Whenever the child process completes its execution, it will terminate by using exit system call. Whenever it completes its execution, the return code of a children process will be automatically sent to the parent process. At that time, the parent has to accept the return code sent by the children. If parent is not willing to accept the return code of a child, then automatically the child will become Zombie process. Okay. So what system call is used by the parent process to accept the return code of a child process? Wait system call is used. Here if you observe wait system call, the return code will be sent and it will be, the return code will be sent from the child process and it will be accessed by the wait system call. Okay, accepted by the wait system call. That means in a parent code, there need to be a wait system call in order to accept the child's return code. So wait system call is used to accept the return code from the children. If a parent is not run the wait system call, automatically the children will become Zombie process. Okay, that is the thing. And the next one is inter-process communication. The next topic is inter-process communication. Okay, so what is inter-process communication? One process is willing to communicate with each other, then there should be a mechanism to support the communication. So in our operating system syllabus, we have two types of mechanisms. One is a shared memory and the second one is message passing. One is a shared memory and the second one is message passing. Okay, these are the two inter-process communication mechanisms which help the process to make the communication with another process, right? So when the two processes are communicating with each other, they might called as cooperative processes. Cooperative processes. Okay, cooperative process can share the information with each other. Okay, what is for inter-process communication? Okay, whenever the two processes are willing to communicate with each other, the communication is only possible with the help of inter-process communication mechanisms. Shortly we can call them IPC, inter-process communication. Okay, we have two types of inter-process communication mechanisms. The first one is a shared memory and the second one is the message passing. First one is the shared memory and the second one is message passing. Okay, so what are the benefits of cooperative process? Why we go for the cooperative process? Okay, the first point, as I said, information sharing. Okay, if they are cooperative, they can share the information with each other. Okay, and the next one, computation speed up. Computation speed up. As I already told you earlier, for example, if you divide the task into two parts. Initially, we don't want to divide the task. So automatically the task will be assigned to a single person. For example, person 1. So the task requires 1 hour of time to complete. Okay. If a single person do the job, automatically it took 1 hour of time. If we divide the task into subtasks, if we divide the task into 4 subtasks and we can assign those 4 subtasks to the 4 different persons, maybe person 1, person 2, person 3 and person 4. So obviously in order to complete the task, we require only 15 minutes. Why? Because those 4 subtasks are submitted to the persons and the persons are start executing them parallelly. And they are doing the jobs parallelly. So automatically we can finish the task within a 15 minutes. So automatically if you divide the things, the computational speed up will be more. Okay. So how these 4 persons are working for the same task, right? And they are working cooperatively. Then there is a need of working cooperatively, right? So computation speed up, why the computation speed up is more? Because of the modularity. What is modularity? Dividing the task into subtasks. Here the entire task is divided into 4 modules. Because of that modularity only, we can divide the task into multiple subtasks, okay, and assign them to the multiple persons. Here in the general we call them as a person, but in a real time we can assign the job to the different CPUs, different CPUs. If it is a computer program, we can divide the work and we can share it to the different CPUs. So CPU 1 first job and CPU 2 will do the second part, and the third part will be assigned to CPU 3, and fourth part will be assigned to the CPU 4. The 4 computers, 4 processors. All the processors are working parallelly to complete the task, to complete this execution, sorry. And next, computation speed up, modularity, information sharing. So these are, and next one more thing is the convenience. So what is convenience? What is convenience? Convenience is nothing but it supports the modularity. Automatically, whenever you want to add a new feature, we can add a new feature to the existing application. We can add a new feature to the existing application, or you can delete the feature from the existing application. Okay, you can add whenever you want and you can delete whenever you want. Okay, so the best example is a banking sector. As I told you earlier, the banking application consists of different modules. Now earlier there is no net banking, now we have a net banking facility. Earlier we don't have quick loan, now you can take the quick loan by using a mobile app. By using a mobile app, we can go for the quick loan, right? Likewise, earlier we need to go to the internet center to take the mini statement, but from your mobile app you can take the mini statement, right? Likewise, every time we are adding more number of facilities to the banking application. So because of the modularity only, it is possible to add the new feature to the existing application. Okay, that is the introduction part of interprocess communication. So what is interprocess communication? So interprocess communication is required to communicate from one process to another process. What are the two interprocess communication mechanisms? Shared memory and message passing. Okay, which process are willing to share the information? If the two processes are cooperative, if the two processes are cooperative, then they are willing to share the information with each other. Okay, so under the cooperative process, what are the benefits of cooperative process? Information sharing, computational speed up, modularity, and the convenience. So these are the advantages of using cooperative processes. Okay, so the same you can observe in the PPT also. So this is about process, operations and process. So as I said to you, so follow the cursor. So under the operations of a process, the first concept is process creation. Creating process is called as parent process, and the process which is newly created is called as a children process. Okay, automatically when a process creates a new process, two possibilities are there for the execution. Okay, let me expand that. Okay, if you go to the last line, a process will need certain resources. In order to complete the task, a process needs to access certain resources such as CPU time, memory, and the IO devices. Right? In order to accomplish the task, the process requires minimum resources. Whenever a parent process creates a child process, all these resources which are already assigned to the parent process will be shared to the child process. Okay? Okay, all the resources, or it may be a subset of resources depending upon the requirement. And the next one, when a process, bold line, when a process creates a new process, the parent continues execute concurrently. That means parent and children will run parallelly, or else the parent has to wait until some or all of its children have terminated. The same diagram. So fourth system call is used to create a child. So child will execute the code and it exit. That means child terminate here. Automatically child will send a code to the parent process. Up to this particular time, up to this particular entire time, what the parent is doing? The parent is waiting for the children termination. Whenever the children send a termination code, status code, it will be accessible by the parent process. Okay. After that, the parent continues its execution. That means in this diagram, the parent is waiting for the child termination. Okay. Parent is not running parallelly here in this particular diagram. Okay. Parent is waiting for the child termination. Okay, that is the first case. What is the second case? The here observe the parent continues to execute concurrently with its children. Okay, and the next one, what are the two possibilities of address space? As I told you earlier, the child process can duplicate the parent process, and whatever the address space of a parent process is, as it easily copied to the child process. In the second case, the child process is having its own code. Okay, that is the thing. So like a parent process, child process is also having a process identifier. As I told you earlier, each and every process identifier is unique. Okay, new process is created by using a fork system call. Okay, and the next point is last point, the important point, the return code. What is the return value of fork system call? It will return two values. One is 0 and the second one is a non-zero. 0 is returned to the child process and a non-zero is returned to the parent process. Non-zero is written to the parent process. Non-zero means child process ID is written to the parent and 0 is written to the child process. Okay. And the next one, process termination. So exit system call is used to terminate the process. And one more point you need to understand, whenever you terminate a process, automatically all the resources are deallocated. All the resources are deallocated. And next, a process, a parent process only terminate the child process. A child cannot terminate the parent process. Okay. So under the process termination, you need to understand one thing. Parent can kill the terminate or terminate the child process, but child cannot terminate the parent process. Okay. And next, one more thing, whenever we terminate the child process, what are the resources allocated to the child process will be deallocated. So in order to complete its execution, maybe child process requires some CPU cycles, it may require some memory, it may require some IO devices, right? So after completing its task, all these resources which are allocated to the child process will be deallocated. Will be deallocated. And next, one more point. So these are the three reasons for the child termination. As I told you, there are three reasons for the child termination. The child has exceeded its usage of resources, and next, the child is no longer required, and the third one is parent is exiting. That means parent is going to terminate, so there is no need of children to run in the machine. So these are the three reasons for the process termination. Okay, and the next one, so inter-process communication. Communication is possible because of two techniques. The first one is a shared memory and the second one is the message passing. Okay. So this is a shared memory. So as I told you, main memory, first system loaded into the main, first software loaded into the main memory is kernel. It might be the process A and it might be the process B. This is process A. Okay. And this is the shared memory, for example, shared region. Okay. So what happened here in the case of shared memory? This is shared memory concept. what happened? So whenever we want to whenever a process want to create a shared region, automatically it will create a shared region within the address space of a process. For example, process A is willing to create a shared memory, then it will create a shared memory within the address space of process A. Automatically, whenever the shared memory creation is successful, it will create a shared memory ID. So whenever the other process are willing to access the shared memory, those process has to use the shared memory ID in order to access the shared memory region. Okay, so directly process B can get the details from the shared memory. From that particular moment of time, process A and process B can access the shared memory. Shared memory means a common area, and it will be accessible by all the processes who are able to acquire the shared memory ID. So that in this particular diagram, there is no kernel involvement. No kernel involvement. But coming to message passing, and this is the kernel, and this is process A, and this is a process B. For example, process A is willing to send a message to process B. So automatically what it will do? It will send the message. It will send the message to kernel. It will send the message to kernel, and the kernel will send the details to the process B. That means whenever there is a communication between the process, there should be some kernel involvement. Kernel involvement is there, right? To communicate, to make the communication possible, there should be some kernel involvement. So whenever a process A is willing to send a message, the message first transferred to the kernel, and from kernel to process B. Now look at the diagram. A is message passing. Process A is sending message to the kernel, and from that is one. That is one. Observe this one. So process A is sending a message to the kernel, and from the kernel the message will be transferred to the process B. That means kernel involvement is there. Because of that reason, message passing is slow when compared to the shared memory. And the next one is here process A and process B. Process A and process B. Process A and process B are willing to share the information. So what happened? Process A creates a shared memory. Process A creates a shared memory region in its address space. Okay. Once the shared memory is created, automatically it will return one ID called as shared memory ID. It will be accessed by the process B. Okay. Process A creates a shared memory and it is accessible to the process B. There is no kernel involvement, right? So because of that reason, shared memory is faster than the message passing. Okay. And the next one, what you need to understand is, under the shared memory, we have a concept called producer and consumer problem. Under the shared memory, we have a concept called producer and consumer. So before going to discuss about producer consumer problem, let me give some information, prior information for better understanding. Okay. So initially there are two types of buffers. One is a bounded buffer and the second one is unbounded buffer. First one is a bounded buffer. First one is a bounded buffer and the second one is unbounded buffer. Okay. First, what is a buffer? Buffer is a temporary storage area. Buffer is a temporary storage area. Okay. If it is a bounded buffer, then we can keep limited items into buffer. We can keep limited items into buffer. If it is an unbounded, as the name indicates, unlimited buffer size. So we can keep unlimited items into buffer. Okay, that is the first one. You need to understand there are two types of buffers, bounded buffer and the unbounded buffer. Bounded buffer means limited items into the buffer, unbounded means unlimited items. Okay, and the next one is producer consumer. If a buffer, for example, here in example, how many number of partitions are there in the buffer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is a bounded buffer. We can keep 5 items into the buffer. For example, initially the buffer is empty. Initially the buffer is empty. Okay. So the producer has to check whether the buffer is full or not. The producer has to check whether the buffer is full or not. Why? Because if the buffer is full, for example, here if you have all the 5 items in the buffer, so is there any possibility to keep the item in the buffer? No. If the buffer is full, the producer cannot produce. The producer can't produce an item into the buffer. So producer has to check the buffer is full or not. What the consumer has to check? Consumer has to check whether the buffer is empty or not. It has to be verified. Why? Because if the buffer is empty, then consumer cannot consume the item. If there is no water in the bucket, how can we take the water from the bucket? We cannot take out the water from the bucket if the bucket is empty. If the bucket has full of water, then we cannot pour the water into the bucket. It is as simple as like that. For example, there is a container. It has 10 kg of sugar. It can hold only 10 kg of sugar. It is already having 10 kg of sugar. Now, if you want to keep one more kg of sugar into that container, is it possible for you to keep one more kg sugar into that container? Obviously not. Why? Because it is already full. For example, if consume all the kgs of sugar from the container, and you took 1 kg and again you take one more kg like that. So at one point of time, the container will be empty. From that moment onwards, the consumer cannot consume the sugar from it. Why? Because it is already consumed, right? So producer has to check for whether the buffer is full or not, and the consumer has to check whether the buffer is empty or not. So these are the points you need to understand. And the next one, there are total 3 variables we require in this program. The first one is a buffer size. Buffer size in this program 10, and in variable are set to 0, and out is also initially set to 0. Now I will explain the producer code. I will explain you the producer code here, and then we'll move to the program. Okay, so observe carefully. So producer code. Okay, what the producer has to check in order to produce the item? First, the initial values you need to understand. What is the buffer size? Buffer size is 10 in our program. In value is 0 and out value is 0. So what I told you earlier, producer has to check whether the buffer is full or not. Producer has to check whether the buffer is full or not. So first that condition will be full or not, will be checked by the producer. If it is not full, then automatically producer can keep the item into the buffer. So buffer of 0 equal to in, one value will keep into the buffer. Okay, likewise, and in value is incremented to 1. Why? Because first item total 10, what is the buffer capacity? 0, 1, 2, swan, we can keep up to 9. Why? Because including 0, total 10 items. The buffer size is 10. Likewise, first item will be kept here and second item will be kept here. Second item means first position. That is the reason we are incrementing the in value. After that, again we move to the loop for the second iteration. Second time again we will check whether the buffer is full or not. No. So automatically again we'll keep. Now the value of buffer is 1, buffer of 1. We'll keep the item. Again in value is incremented to 2. Again we will move to the next iteration. Likewise in value 2, in value 3, in value 4, in value 5, like that we'll move to the in value 9. Whenever it reaches to the 9, so automatically the buffer is full. Full or not means the buffer is full. At that time, the producer cannot do anything, do nothing. Okay, na? Likewise, iteration by iteration, every time we'll keep one item to the buffer. So that is about producer. What is about consumer? What is about consumer? The consumer has to remove the items from the buffer, consume the item from the buffer. So we need to take out the items. So we need to take out the items. Here we are keeping the items into the buffer. In the case of consumer, we need to take out the items. So the consumer has to, in order to take out the items need to be there in the buffer. If the buffer is empty, what the consumer will do? Do nothing. Consumer cannot do anything if the buffer is empty. If the buffer is not empty, then what a consumer can do? Consumer can take out the items and what? Then consumer can take out the items and consumer can take out the items. Okay, that is the thing. So we'll go for the code now. So as I said, so observe the cursor, the buffer size is 10. And next to the variable value in is set to 0 and out is set to 0. The buffer size is 10. Remember this point. And the next one, this is the producer code. Initially while of true. While of true means always true. We'll move to the loop. First what the producer has to do? Producer has to check whether the buffer is full or not. What is the in value initially? What is the in value? 0. Remember this point. I don't want to move here and there every time. The buffer size is 10 and in value is 0 and out value is 0. So initially the in value is 0. So 0 plus 1 means 1. Modulo division buffer size. What is the buffer size? 10. 1 modulo division 10 means remainder. It is a modulo division. We'll get the remainder. 1 modulo division 10 means 1. Equal to what is the out value? 0. 1 equal to 0 na? No. Condition false. So automatically whenever the condition falls, automatically will move out of the loop. What we will do? Buffer of in. What is the in value? 0. Buffer of 0 equal to item. That means in the first place we keep the item in the buffer. Okay. After that what we will do? We'll increment the value. In equal to in plus 1 modulo division buffer size. What is the in value? 0. 0 plus 1 means 1. 1 modulo division buffer size 10. 1 modulo division 10 means 1. Now the in consists of 1. Again we will move to the next iteration. Now what is the value of 1? 1 already incremented, na? So the value of in is 1 now. 1 now. So 1 plus 1 means 2. So modulo division 10. So like that fashion, in every iteration, it will be moved. It will be, one item will be moved to the buffer until the 9 items. So we can keep from 0 to 9 items into the buffer. Okay. 2 modulo division 10 means 2 not equal to 0, right? Again here what is the value of in? The in value is 1. Buffer of in 1 equal to item. In the first iteration, buffer of 0 equal to item. In the second iteration, buffer of 1 equal to item. Again we will move to the increment. So increment operation means previously an in value is 1. Now the in value is 2. So 1 plus 1 is 2. Again we'll move here. So 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 modulo division 10 means 3 not equal to 0, right? Again we move here. So buffer of in. Here buffer of in means buffer of 2. Buffer of 2 equal to item. In the first iteration, buffer of 0 equal to item. In the second iteration, buffer of 1 equal to item. In the third iteration, buffer of 2 equal to item. Likewise, we are doing the iterations till the in value will become 9. Whenever the in value will become 9, Whenever the in value become 9, 9 plus 1 equal to 10. 10 modulo division 10 equal to 0. 0 equal to out value is 0. So 0 equal to 0. That means while condition is true. Whenever the while condition is true, what the producer can do? Do nothing. Why? Because the buffer is full. Likewise, we can keep 9 items into the buffer. Buffer of 0th place, buffer of 1, buffer of 2. Like that, we can keep 9 items. Okay, this is about producer problem. And this is a consumer problem. So what I told you earlier, the consumer has to check whether the buffer is empty or not. Why? Because if the buffer is empty, the consumer cannot consume the items from the buffer. Okay, while of true, that means always true. We'll move to the loop. While of in equal to out. What is the in value initially? What is the in value initially? In value 0, out value 0. Okay, so in 0, 0. So do nothing. If the in and out values are 0 and 0, we cannot do nothing. Okay. Next, item equal to buffer of out. What is the initial value? Buffer of out means initial ke buffer of 0. So 0th location value will be removed from the buffer and keep it in the item. Again the increment out equal to out plus 1. Out equal to out plus 1 means out value will be incremented. So in the previous case we are incremented the in value to 9. But we are not increment the out value, right? Out value is 0. So automatically here in 9 equal to 0. 9 is not equal to 0, right? That is the reason we are moving from here to here. Buffer of 0 will be keep into the item. Out equal to out plus 1. What is out value? 0. 0 plus 1. Likewise here also we are running the program 9 times. Running the program 9 times. Not program, running the while loop for 9 times. Okay na? Iteration. Is it clear for you all? Up to this point, is it clear for you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Take a book and try to solve. Give a values to the variables and try to run it iteration by iteration so that you came to know. So when if it is a producer problem, if the buffer is full, the producer cannot produce the item. This is the condition for checking whether the buffer is full or not. Okay. Coming to consumer, consumer has to check whether the buffer is empty or not. So this is the condition for checking the buffer, whether it is full empty or not. Okay. And next part is interpersonal communication mechanism 2, that is message passing system. So there are 2 operations we can perform. So in order to make the communication possible, we have 2 interprocess communication mechanisms. The first one is a shared memory and the second one is a message passing. Okay. If 2 processes are willing to exchange the information, either it can send a message or it can receive a message from the other process, right? So there are totally 2 facilities. One is send a message and the second one is a receive message. Okay. There are 2 types of messages. One is a fixed size message and the second one is a variable size message. Okay. Fixed size means straightforward. It is very simple to implement. Whereas variable size message means each and every message is of different sizes. So obviously it will take some, it will have some complexity. Okay. So if 2 processes are willing to communicate with each other, definitely there should be some communication link between the 2 processes. For example, here in our example, there are 2 processes, P and Q. P is willing to send information to Q, or Q will send information to P. Okay. In order to send the message or receive the message from the other processes, there should be some communication link between the 2 processes. Okay. So these are the types of implementing send and receive operations. First one is a direct or indirect communication, symmetric or asymmetric communication, automatic or explicit buffering, send by copy or send by reference, fixed size or variable size messages. Okay. Under the first one, naming. Naming is the first concept in message passing. So the first one is a direct communication. So directly you need to concentrate on the bold letters for your benefit. So I made it bold. So if it is a direct communication, here if you observe, this is a send primitive. Send of P comma message. That means send a message to process P. Receive Q comma message. That means receive a message from Q. Send a message to P. Receive a message from a process Q. Sending to P, receiving from Q. Okay. So in order to make the send and receive possible, there should be some communication link between the P and Q. If the two processes are willing to exchange the information or they are willing to use the send and receive primitives, there should be a communication link. Okay, na? So it has some properties. The link should have some properties. Okay. The direct communication link has some properties. The first one is only two processes. Exactly two processes must be connected with each other. Okay. There should be only one link. There should be not more than one link. For example, if there are two processes P and Q, there should be only one link between the process P and process Q, and there should be only two processes, only one link. Okay. And the link may be unidirectional or it may be the bidirectional. Unidirectional means only one direction. Bidirectional means two-way, two directional. Okay. So let me Q. This is unidirectional, right? Why? Because there is only one arrow mark. If it is like this, it is bidirectional. Unidirectional means only one direction. Either this direction to that direction or this direction to this direction. These are unique. And this is the bidirectional. Okay. So I will give you only we have only 2 minutes of time. I will complete only this one. So direct communication. So as I told you earlier, if it is a direct communication, then what happened? There should be only two processes. That is the first rule. And there is only exactly one link. There should not more than one link. So only one link need to be there. It may be unidirectional or it may be bidirectional. Two processes, only one link, and it may be bidirectional or unidirectional. So these are the properties we need to understand.
Hello.
It's a direct communication.
Cheppu.
Right? Please mute your devices.
Okay.
And the next one, it is indirect communication, right? So send P comma message, send a message to process P, and the next receive ID comma message. Yes. Receive ID comma message. That means receive a message from any process. So for example, no direct communication. We need to send a message. We need to not. We are not mentioning the process name here. In previous example, in the previous example, what we have did send P comma message means sending a message to P. Receive Q comma message means receive a message from Q, and we are receiving message from only Q, not any other process, right? But in this particular case, send P comma message means we are sending a message to process P. Receive ID comma message means we are receiving the message from any other process. Okay, here we are not mentioning the receiving process name. That is the difference between the previous one and this one. Okay, now the variable ID is set to the name of the process with which communication has taken place. That means the communication takes place between any process. In the previous example, the communication takes place between the two processes only. Those are P and Q. But in this particular case, we can send a message to P, but we can receive the message from any other process. It may be a Q, it may be a Z, it may be a Y. Okay, any other process. So that is the difference between the previous one and this one. Okay. And the next coming to coming to indirect communication. In the case of indirect communication, sender will send a message to a mailbox and we get the message from the mailbox. There is no communication between the P and Q. P will send a message to the mailbox and Q will receive the message from the mailbox. That means mailbox will be work as a mediator. Both sender and receiver will get the message from the mailbox. So that is the reason why it is called as indirect communication. In the direct communication, you need to mention two things. The first one is send P comma message, receive Q comma message. That means send a message to P, receive message from Q. And the next one, send a message to P and receive message from any process. These are the two varieties in the direct communication. In the case of indirect communication, the sender will send the message to the mailbox and the receiver will get the message from the mailbox. So there is no direct communication between the process, right? So mailbox, from the mailbox, the communication is possible. So because of that reason, it is called as indirect communication. So here we need to understand one thing. Each and every mailbox has unique identification. Okay. Why? Because different processes are using different mailboxes, right? So the mailboxes are different for the different communications. So in order to make the difference, in order to uniquely identify the mailbox, we require an identifier. Which mailbox are used for the which processes? So for that purpose, each and every mailbox need to be assigned an identifier that must be unique. Okay. So this is indirect communication. So I require half an hour class to complete the inter-process communication mechanism. After that, we'll move to the threading issues. Mostly we'll complete the second unit by Tuesday. Okay. Thank you.
మేడం
చెప్పండి.
వీడియోస్ యూట్యూబ్ లో అప్లోడ్ చేయట్లేదు మేడం.
So I have given the videos to your faculty. So I'll ask them to upload the videos to the YouTube.
ఓకే మేడం. అండ్ పీడిఎఫ్స్ కూడా గ్రూప్ లో పెట్టండి మేడం.
Sure.
ఓకే మేడం.
First I would like to send the second unit syllabus. So for first unit, I will send the next week. Mostly by Monday or Tuesday I will send. Okay.
ఓకే మ్యామ్.
Thank you.